Welcome to News with a View, a Fat Cat production coming out of Studio B, finally, 60 days later and over budget. But we're coming out of Studio B today. Sounds a little echoey, not sure, but we'll fix that shortly. Today is February 27th, 2005. This is episode 41 already. And here we go. So this isn't the man cave or anything like that. I don't believe in stuff. This is just our bonus room. Today, we're going to go over 5 items, maybe 6. Just a topic talk at the end. And this will probably go for at least an hour. I'm trying to keep these under an hour, but it's hard. All right, the first things that we're going to talk about is Supreme Court Justice Roberts halts lower court order on U.S. aid payment. So, Justice Roberts halted the lower court's ruling that the payment would have to go out today or tomorrow or March 1st for about $2 billion. And he said, nope. We're going to wait a little while. We're going to see what the administration has to say about it. And we're not rushing this process. All right. Second item, Democrats lose a key energy vote in the Senate. So we'll talk about that. DOGE investigates former Biden's transition team member for $100 million and more of payments to a resettlement facility in Texas. So that's under investigation. Attorney General Pam Bundy drops all DEI lawsuits under the Biden administration that has been placed for the Department of Justice to act upon. So that's going to be interesting. And then the AP lockout from the press pool, some fun facts on that. So let's jump right in. This is from Fox News. Chief Justice John Roberts pauses judge's order for Trump's administration to pay foreign aid contractors by midnight. So this was by midnight. So Roberts halted the lower court's order for Donald Trump to release U.S. aid funds. The stay was issued Wednesday night ahead of the midnight deadline to disperse $2 billion in aid. And, of course, USAID was one of the first targets of President Trump's cost-saving endeavors. And because they probably, other than FEMA and possibly food stamps, are the biggest spenders. So this was after Acting Solicitor General Sarah Harris appealed to the Supreme Court, saying the order's end of Wednesday deadline, which she called imminent and arbitrary, made full compliance impossible. So this was done by the original action was taken by a Judge Amir Ali required administration to disperse nearly $2 billion by 11:59 p.m. When doing so would require multiple weeks. The halt allows Trump to continue freezing foreign aid money allocated by USAID, whose spending has been targeted by the president in his cost-cutting drive. The earlier order related to two cases brought by aid organizations, including the AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition and the Global Health Council. And the Chief Justice did not provide a reason for the stay, which gives the Supreme Court time to evaluate the rule on the Trump administration's request. He gave the plaintiff until Friday to respond. So, they got their work cut out in front of them with that. So, and Trump is going to fight this tooth and nail. He is going to fight this tooth and nail. And I think he's on fairly solid ground if he goes back to Congress and asks them to relook at the appropriations. Again, there's rules and procedures for clawing back money that Congress had already, approved. I mean, these were Congress-approved funding. And a president just can't arbitrarily take it back. He has to give notice and he has to give reason. So, and I said this was one of the ones where I said he's on a little shaky ground. He can now give notice, and he has given 30 days notice, and Congress can, if they want, take it. No action by Congress could automatically be a default to the president. It's never been done. I haven't seen this done, so don't know. All right, but that was a biggie today. And in another hit to the prior administration, the Democrats lost a key energy vote in the Senate, and it went through party lines. Exactly what and everyone else. I'm not, a genius with this. It's just that it was pretty evident that, for the most part, everything's going down the party lines, and that's the way it's going to be. And people aren't going to like it, and that's just basically going to be too bad. So the Democrats in the Senate failed to pass a resolution that would have reversed President Trump's executive order on unleashing American energy in a 53-47 party line vote. Well, that's what happens when you control the Senate. And they said Tim Kaine wants to impoverish Americans. President Donald Trump's executive order brings America into the future and unleashes prosperity. Kaine wants to cost the economy trillions and risk losing nearly 1 million jobs. Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly sent an exclusive statement to Fox Digital News on Tuesday. The resolution was introduced by Democratic Senators Tim Kaine and Martin Heinrich, as they argued that the emergency declaration made by the president would benefit big oil but harm Americans, according to the statements provided by the lawmakers to Fox Digital on Tuesday also. Democrats said that Trump administration is living in a fantasy land. Energy demand is high and only getting higher, which is why it's great that America is producing more energy than any point in history, decreasing the supply. decreasing the supply of American-made energy when demand is high is the quickest way to raise prices. And that's exactly what the President Trump's sham energy emergency will do. So, by tampering with the market to favor some forms of energy over others and making it easier for fossil fuel companies to take America's private property, Trump's emergency declaration will benefit big oil, but leaves American consumers with fewer choices and higher bills. Now, what is the alternative? How many electric cars are there out there? Honestly, there's not a lot compared to fossil cars. So that statement, yeah, no. We've seen what a Biden administration literally forcing the consumer. And when the Democrats start complaining that it doesn't give them options, well, what did Biden do? And Trump complained about. Made an arbitrary date and said, you got to buy by that. No more fossil fuel cars. Everything must be, lopsided towards electric vehicles. When we hadn't even really had a solid working model yet. Tesla might have the only absolute working model. And of course, the big three working on their stuff, but have yet to really been proven in the long run. And even Musk has said, they got to work this all out. And competition in the EV market would make it a lot more competitive. But when the Biden administration was giving out, $7,000, $8,000 incentives, there was no incentive for the automakers to become competitive because they were getting their full asking price. Because people said, well, I got a $7,500 credit or grant or whatever, tax deduction. So, yeah, they don't have to be competitive. I still say alternate sources to fossil fuel, really the only logical one is hydrogen. And until they can make the transfer from, a hydrogen dispensing, station to your vehicle where it's safe, because, hydrogen is just uber explosive. I know that they can make the cars safer, they can make the impact, better, and, you could still have fires. The problem with a hydrogen fire is that you don't even see the flame for the most part. And it burns. And hydrogen is so easy to make, and the byproduct is water. After it's burned off, it's water. So it's probably the most environmentally friendly, but also poses the most amount of risks. And I'm sure in time they will get the answer, and just like in time they'll probably get the answer for the electric car. It's there, it's just a matter of time. And if there's enough money thrown at it in the research, and then if the making of those batteries are environmentally reasonable and the cost comes down, then you could definitely have options. But do I want my fire department to run on EV? No. Do I want my police? No. Do I want my ambulance services? No. I want them on reliable fuel. and that's going to be there. And we could have an earthquake that takes out, you know, uh, the grid. But most of the emergency response people have their own fuel tanks, and at least for 5 or 6 days, and then they'd have to get the military in there to supply and do what the military does. But the EVs, you need a massive amount of energy to be able to refuel a fleet with electric. And I just don't see the practicality of it yet. The novelty, yeah. I mean, you want to spend $45,000 on a nice car, $50,000 on a nice car. You're going to spend that on a nice car in the fossil fuel. And then that EV car that you have just to go around town would only cost you pennies a day versus, multiple dollars per day in fuel. But when you look into the maintenance, the insurance, and the depreciation factor of an EV vehicle, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Unless your company is buying it for you and they're using it as a write-off and there's other opportunities for them to recapture losses. For the average individual, nope, it's a novelty item. I mean, if you can afford it, hey, knock yourself out. And if you're that committed to it, have at it. Though I don't think the government should support you in your endeavor. Doesn't stand behind me buying a car. I got to pay, whatever the sticker price is and whatever the dealer's willing to come down from it. So, and what they're saying, Senator John Brasso of Wyoming, Republican, slammed the resolution as Democrats trying to block common sense measures to tackle painfully high prices. After 4 years of reckless regulations and restrictions, energy prices have jumped 31%. Families are feeling all across the country. To most Americans, this is the definition of energy emergency. To Senate Democrats, it's an inconvenient truth. So, 31% would be low because when Trump was in office, I paid $1.68 for fuel, and the other day I paid $2.79. So I'm sorry, it's probably closer up to 45% in certain areas and higher. And a lot has to do with taxes. California, they could bring theirs down to a reasonable amount if they weren't, knowing that there's more people that have cars than have houses that own homes, so they get their money that way. And why would they improve public transportation and lose all that income? You got to think of that too. Well, we want them to use public transit. Well, when it stinks and it's not safe or reliable, you got to drive. And they know that. And they know that you got to put fuel in it. They know by putting fuel in it, you're paying taxes. Not fooling anyone. California. My cold is a lot better in the last couple of days. Still some sniffling here and there. But that was a long haul on that cold. So, GOP governors in top energy states, look forward to this new tap on the energy. It will mean more jobs for them. It will be a less concern to their consumers and their citizens, that they know that they will have a dependable and reliable amount of fuel coming up. And it will probably be cheaper really in the end. So, I don't see this as a bad thing. And the Trump administration emphasized that ending the emergency would bring back Biden-era policies. White House documents obtained by Fox News Digital stress that under those policies during Biden's first 2 years, families spent an extra $10,000 in energy cost on average, citing a study published by the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. Yeah, well, that's always going to be slanted to that. And the document cited the estimates of liquefied natural gas growth in the new administration were projected to bring in 500,000 jobs annually and boost the U.S. GDP by $1.3 trillion through 2040, a study by S&P Global in December. So, interesting. It just means that, Trump is, drill, baby, drill, 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 drill. And for us average, everyday Americans, it will mean lower gas prices in a couple of months, maybe in a year. They'll start dropping. I don't believe the energy people supplying us with electric are going to lower it, and they're not going to drop their own money revenue coming in. And a lot of electric companies and power companies now are charging what they deem on-demand services. So here in South Carolina, where I live, come I think March 21st, my county where I live is now going to fall under the on-demand, and it goes from 0.7 cents per kilowatt hour to $8 per kilowatt hours from 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. through the summer, the hottest part of the day. Now, I'm hoping, and I am definitely trying to get people together, and we start a class action lawsuit against Santee Cooper. How they were able to do this, and really, it's almost 1,000 times the rate. And they go, well, the average person will only see. Actually, they'll save money if they turn off their electricity. Who's going to turn off their electricity for 3 hours out of the day, from 3 to 6? All right. You're coming home from work. You shower. You start the laundry. You make dinner. Those are prime time for people coming home and starting their day after working. And now you're telling them, well, you can't do that until after 6 o'clock. So now, instead of going to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock, because you got to be up at 6 in the morning for your day job, you're going to be going to bed 11 o'clock because you still have laundry to do, and you're going to prep food now for the next day so you don't have to turn the stove on. That's a big FU to Santee Cooper and how they came about to do this, and it was done very quietly. They put a notice up on a bulletin board, in a shopping center, and there were no hearings that I saw, because I would have gone to it and asked, how are you calculating that? And why? You've allowed all these homes to be built in this area and you can't service them. The county should be brought up on charges too. So that's just my little beef with Santee Cooper here in South Carolina. I'm sure Santee Cooper is big in North Carolina and a lot of other states. So time to get after these guys and, get a little reasoning to them. All right. The third thing on my list, or the third item, not thing, but the third news story that we're going to discuss. DOGE investigates former Biden transition team member for hundreds of millions of dollars that individual reaped operating an empty facility. So, as a result of a contract, Family Endeavor's cash and portfolio of investments jumped from $8.3 million in 2020 to $520 million in 2023. Since March of 2024, HHS has paid $18 million per month to keep a facility in Pecos, Texas, used for housing unaccompanied migrant children that was previously at the center of reports of poor conditions. The payments continued despite the facility being empty. And this is a DOGE claim. These are just claims. And with national licensed facilities occupancy below 20%, HHS was able to terminate this contract, saving over $215 million annually, they stated on X. Again, I don't like that Musk uses X as a quasi-official news outlet. Sorry, took a while. And I think that everything that the president says, everything that, these agencies say, should go through an official channel. And if they want to make private citizen comments, they can. They can. I mean, that's their right to do that. But I know that they don't normally get an outlet through the certain media, and they go to this outlet. But I'm not a big fan of that. Not a big fan of that. I think they got a little bit too much sway, like an X and Facebook and these things, for like the president and Elon and other people. I understand I'm a constitutionalist and they're allowed to do it, but being allowed and then actually doing it, they should be using some personal thinking here to say, that's not the right thing to do. You can do it, and there's no real harm in it, but it's sketchy to me. I don't like it. So, and they said, well, we see it, and DOGE is looking into it, and said that, we're looking at all government waste, and if we find out that this place was collecting money and putting in for things that they weren't allowed to do, or no one in the prior administration was looking, they're going to try to claw back, get some of that money back. Some of the numbers they're throwing on Wednesday must predict DOGE will reach its 100 trillion spending cut goal if they cut $4 billion per day through September. Now, yes, you can. The argument that I have, and I always use, I go all the way from one side, all the way to the other side, is that you could cure cancer if you killed everyone with cancer. So, just like I said, you could have cured, AIDS if you killed everyone with AIDS. I mean, you could do that. In some countries they did. But that's the kind of logic. I don't know. I mean, if you cut all spending, yes, you could save trillions. And will it actually happen? Will it work? Is it sustainable? And these are things that we have to look at, and really, you got to ponder. I don't think we should be spending any money overseas, except absolute for our loyalist friends who knows that while I'm feeding them, they're going to do whatever I tell them to do. And if they don't, they go hungry. So you do as I tell you to do, and your food will keep coming to you. And when I say food, it's money. Don't do what I tell you to do and fight me on it. Yeah, you can. It's your country, your nation, your whatever. I just don't give you any more money. And that's how I really think it has to be done. Stop giving these people money. We have our own problems here. And if you're going to give the money, give it to our people. It's that simple. All right. That was DOGE's latest. I'm sure I could probably go through their news releases and find, everything that they're doing. But I just really find it interesting that where the Democrats went after the age of some of these DOGE investigators and employees, 19 to 25, and boom, boom, they're kids, they don't know what they're doing, boom, boom. Yet these same Democrats scream that a 8-year-old should decide their own sexual course. All right? And not tell the parent about it. Teachers can't tell the parents that Johnny wants to be called Susie and Susie wants to be called Johnny. Nope. They have the perfect right to do that. And yet when a 19-year-old is working, oh no, you can't have that. So you see the problem with the logic of the left. And that is a major problem. That's why I say I have a major problem with the left. They are so far gone that they're not dependable. And even people inside their own party now are saying that they can only win by default. So, I was expecting a call, but I'm not seeing who's calling yet. Nope. I don't need nothing. All right. We're going to go to the next lawsuit. And I know, why do I keep my phone here? Because I'm a nut with my phone. With my family. That's my problem. That's my own little OCD. But if my family had to reach me for whatever reason, I want to know immediately. I want to be in control. So that's my own little problem. Always has been. But I blame my mother and father. All right. So the next thing, Attorney General Pam Bundy now dismisses all DEI lawsuits brought against the police, fire departments, and probably other, municipality or any of the federal agencies under the Biden administration. The Department of Justice has dismissed diversity, equity, and inclusion lawsuits brought against various police and fire departments across the country under the Biden administration, which deemed aptitude tests in certain cases as discriminatory. Now, this has been something that's been going on for years, and they disguised DEI under the equal opportunity laws. And they tried to say, well, DEI, because the justices have said that are ruling against EEOC rulings and companies' hiring practices and state and cities' hiring practices when it came down to diversity having quotas. And this has been going on, for 40 years. And then they disguised that by calling it DEI. Now, DEI is not a law. It's not even you could enact a policy for hiring under DEI. But when you do, you subject yourself to lawsuits, and this is what's going on. So, communities deserve firefighters and police officers to be chosen for their skills and dedication to public safety, not to meet DEI quotas. And that's exactly what I said before, and I've said it in the past. The idea of, saying, well, because we need women in the fire department, but they can't carry a 150-pound person. And I'm going to say most people can't. Male or female, they can't. But there are those that can. And if they have the physical attributes to do it, those are the people that you want. Now, you can make the reference that at 22 years old, I can carry a 150-year-old person. If I could. I'm just saying it could. I couldn't. Even at 22, I probably couldn't carry a 150-pound person down 6 flights of stairs. I might be able to roll them down, but, not carry them. But you had 22-year-olds that could. And they passed the physicals. And they met the criteria for such. Now, could they do that at 45? I don't know. But then you'd have a stream of 22-year-olds coming in, and these firemen then could carry hoses and, become into different positions inside the fire department. But when they tested females, they skewed. They said, well, a female doesn't have to carry that type of weight, or they, can only have to do down 1 flight of stairs or 6 steps or whatever. And all right, so now what are you going to do? You're going to make them, just do hose work or drivers or whatever. A fireman has to be able to do everything. And, policemen. At least when you join the force, you have to be in pretty good shape. And you have to make it through the training in most municipalities of a, some type of physical test. And then not only pass that physical test, then through an academy program that, You have to be able to show aptitude. But then, you see policemen that, wouldn't pick up a donut because they couldn't. If it dropped, leave, whatever. And, so maintaining one's weight at an appropriate level and training on an appropriate level, I would never expect a 32-year-old man to be able to do and have the agility and speed that a 22-year-old would have, or an 18-year-old would have. It's why the military didn't take people over a certain age, except during World War II. Because, you're going to be a hindrance. So she said, nope, you can't do it. You can't have this. You can't make that claim. And guess what? She is absolutely correct. And you don't like it? Too bad. I'm sure some of those suits, people will refile them and will go through the courts, and they just can't arbitrarily dismiss them, or we'll see what happens. There are catch-alls for these things, and again, I believe that if you have a certain right, you should be able to exercise that right. And if anyone in government makes a move that is considered unconstitutional, then it's got to be remedied. I don't care if they're Republicans, I don't care if they're Democrats, because when those rights are lifted from them, down the road it's lifted from all of us. So you could just you could sit back and go, yeah. But if it's allowed, the suit is allowed under the Constitution to be filed. Maybe it's not a DEI case, maybe it's an EEOC, but in those cases they might have been already rectified, and there's vetted law and vetted outcomes on that. So where a judge would go, yeah, we've tossed these cases out like this before. So sorry, next. Now, the next thing on my list is more little fun facts from the Associated Press, what they're calling a lockout and an infringement of their freedom of speech. So, sorry, folks, it's not an infringement. You don't have access to the president, and you don't get any special privileges just because you're press. The press is not being told what to print. The AP can publish whatever they would like to publish, but it doesn't mean I have to speak to you. You could take your sources from other people, other news outlets. It's done every day. There could be a story on MSNBC, and they go from a story from CBS News that reported, that's all you need to do. So the AP, where they said they were doing this, forgot to mention that the Biden administration the Biden administration had revoked the hard passes of 442 journalists in 2023. without giving any reason why, other than that you lost your press pass privileges. No reason given. And they took a non-committal stance. That's what it's called. Whereas at least Trump said, hey, you're not calling what I'm saying, you're calling correct. No, I'm not going to let you in. You can't play with my toys in the sandbox. You don't have a right to my sandbox. And you could look outside the sandbox and report on what I'm doing, but you can't come in my sandbox. Well, 442 journalists. Of course, Biden held the fewer press conferences anyway since Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan didn't hold a lot of press conferences. He didn't like dealing with the press. Not in having a stand-up talk. He did it, but Joe Biden, I mean, they just kept him away from everyone. And that was almost from day one. And, these same press people had no problems with that. The press corps was closed down at 11:30 in the morning. Most days. That's it. Unless the White House press secretary held a conference, but that's just her doing her job. But Biden come out there and talking to people? No. And Trump, who loves talking to the media and loves hearing that, is much different. So I don't have to invite you to my party, is what Trump is really saying to the Associated Press. So now I was going to talk, and I will talk about it for a second. It came up in the news that Attorney General Pam Bundy was asked by, I think, Jesse Waters about an investigation of FBI former Director Comey. And the Attorney General responded back to the question, it's the first I'm hearing about it. I have no knowledge of any investigation going on of Comey. Now, the Washington Times had reported that there's an investigation, but they reported that it's an FBI investigation. It's an internal investigation, so why would Bondi know about that? And she wouldn't, unless that internal investigation found information that would require the Department of Justice, her department, to then look at to see if a violation of any laws actually happened. So Pam Bundy saying, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. No. I haven't seen anything because it hasn't hit her desk yet. And she wasn't going to say, she's smart, she wasn't going to say, oh yeah, well that's, go speak to Kash Patel. Get a hold of Dan Bongino. Ask them. I'm sure she read in the newspapers, but she can honestly say, I have no idea what you're talking about. I haven't seen anything. There's no investigation because for her, there's no investigation. Her department isn't investigating anything. So it's an honest answer. Now, the follow-up question would have been, a little bit deeper, but her answer would have been, hey, I'm not speaking for the FBI. You want to ask that FBI? You want to ask the FBI questions? I'll give you their address. You can go there and ask. So, I'm sure that there's investigations going on that of course, she can't, comment on it. But she would have said, "I can't comment on any investigation that we're doing right now. It's just not fair. I can't divulge any investigation. When it goes to court or when they file charges, then they could answer questions on it. Limited in scope, of course, but they could answer questions." The other question that has come up should have wrote it down because it was right before I started today's show that I started reading some stuff. But we were moving stuff and getting this, plugging everything in for the first time about 15 minutes before we started this podcast. So I had to make sure that, everything was working, the shots looked good. I realized the shot looks a little busy here, and I'm just going to do a quick cut. This is what the upstairs looks like. We'll be doing some other little shots and so forth. Go back to my my auto fade back. I'm trying to put this switcher in a spot where it's conveniently located to my fingers, and got to do what you got to do. All this stuff in the background. A lot of this stuff are toys that I had as a child, as a mere child. I think when I was 13, our house burned down, and I lost all my toys, all my childhood toys. And I didn't think much of it back then, other than, hey, that we got out by the skin of our teeth and the clothes on our back. And I was in pajamas and got out. And the house was almost a total loss. And I lost all my toys. So as an adult, after buying my children all their toys, I said, I want my toys back. And where could I find those toys? eBay. And I scoured and scoured and scoured, and my wife scoured and scoured, and I gave her a list of all the toys I had. And then I realized what a little spoiled little bastard I was. And they gave me a lot of toys. So I bought Lionel trains, Marx trains, M-A-R-X. Hasbro toys. Printing presses that I had. I had lino print and the big press, and I would make my own newspapers. And interesting that when I look back on it, that I was always involved. My parents were avid readers. My dad was an avid reader. My mom loved reading newspapers, as did my dad. So we used to get 2 or 3 newspapers per day in our house. It was the New York Times, Newsday, Long Island Press, and I'm almost certain it was the Wall Street Journal that my dad got. And my dad was the worst investor. Buy high, sell low was his motto. So, it taught me a lot not to dabble too much in the market. And when I did, and I made where I would set my benchmark goal to get out. Take your money. You made money. Be happy. Yeah, it could go up 30 more times, but you made 2 times your money. Where can you do that except in Vegas? So, but I got all my toys back. That was a big thing for me. Get all my toys back. And I think actually my wife found the toy. And I had described it. I said, I don't know the name of it. I wish I did, but this is everything it did and all the functions and what it looked like. And I drew pictures. And my wife found it. And for my birthday present, I got that toy back. And what it was an electronic kit that you could make all different, gadgets with, 50-in-1 kits. But these were magnetic cubes that you put the transistor here, and then you put the bias resistor here, and it sat on a metal plate and all interconnected. And before, you put that resistor in there, I had a voltmeter, and they tell you now, measure between here and here, and you should have 0.7 volts, and that's what turns on and off the transistor. And I learned all that stuff. I learned that stuff before I went to school, electronics. And so, and I was fortunate enough, I already understood transistor theory. And transistors were out, of course, in the 50s and things like that, but there were still tube televisions and tube radios, and that was the mainstay. You spent $250 on a television back then. That thing was, they'll bury you before, mom and dad or grandma and grandpa got rid of that thing. So when I went to school, I learned tube theory. And it was very much like transistor theory, but of course with a lot higher voltages. And then when we went to transistor theory, that was a heyday for me. I could just sit there and, raise my hand all the time. And no, John, we know you know the answer. Put your hand down. You're not allowed to answer the question. And, he goes, well, he goes, you're good with that, but he goes, you stink in math. And I go, well, I can add and subtract and multiply. And he goes, yeah, the old-fashioned way. And then he whipped out a slide rule. And he goes, yeah, now let me show you how to do geometry, trig, algebra, which I was struggling in school with algebra. And I will say I had a terrible teacher. He was an absolute nut job. He shouldn't, he had tenure, but they couldn't do anything with him. He was a terrible teacher. And he showed me how to do slide rule math. And I was like, why didn't they show us this? Why didn't they show us the power of 10? Why didn't they do all this stuff? And he goes, well, I'm showing you. And I had to take my transistor classes and sit there because I was obligated to do it. I had to sit there and take the tests. And then when we got into some real heavy mathematical stuff, and he was showing everyone, and that was Mr. Daniel Mathis. And he started showing us, how to do the math. And I already knew it because he was taking the time to show me. And I just breezed through it. And then when I was in high school and I had math classes, and, boom, 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 whip through it, come up with the answer. And my teachers got very upset with that and fought with me that, said, no, that's not being able to do the math. And I said, well, yeah, because I'm getting the answer, and how can that not be getting the math? If I didn't know how to do the formula, I couldn't use the slide rule. And, it just takes out the middleman. You move it over to where it needs to go. You move the dial over. Boom. If you have a really good slide rule, you get to the third decimal point on a lot of things. And it went back and forth, and then finally the head of the math department said, well, they use slide rules in colleges for math. What's the problem here? And I was actually able to take my math final using my slide rule. And, there's other times you can't use slide. There were mathematical things that, the slide rule wasn't going to do for you. But I think we got 2 hours to do that math test, and I think I was out of there in like an hour and 2 minutes. And, I knew from test taking, your first answer is usually right. Just stick with it and don't go over, if you really don't know, skip the question and go back to it. Don't, start changing your answers, because that's a bad thing to do. But that was schooling. And electronics. I got a lot of electronic kits back here. 1 tube AM transmitters and all gadgets that I loved in the early 60s. Couldn't get enough of it. I was fortunate that I had parents that didn't force us into a profession. They kind of let us find our way. Do what you like. And I was fortunate that way. My parents were good. My mother was a teacher, artist, and my dad was a doctor, dentist. But he never said, no, you got to become a doctor. You got to become a dentist. If I had to do it again, I'd become a lawyer. Because after working with lawyers, their mind was trained to think in an engineering way, but where we had numbers that were constant. That these are the numbers. They never change. In law, you got to go around. And it was a lot more flexible and allowed you to think more abstract. So I look back, I don't think I'd ever want to become a doctor. I like medicine. I like learning and reading about all these things. But I think I would become too emotionally attached to a situation and would not be able to pull myself away from it. So, but that's just me. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. I did enough about, you sat here and it was like a psychiatry lesson the last 15 minutes, but I had to fill time. All right, I want everyone to be safe. This is where we're going to be coming from now on, unless something really drastic changes. This is the room. A little dark on this. I'm working on getting a little bit better lighting on it and stuff. But the problem with the lighting is, see those glares that you pick up over there on those long shots? Yeah, that's why I like to have highlighting, from like the ceiling. But wifey's not going to allow me to drill into the ceilings or anything. So I might be able to make a platform, and hang lights off of it and do it that way, which might happen. Depends on how lazy I am. But this is our room. My wife keeps her toys on that side of the room, and I keep my stuff on this side of the room. And she has a whole bunch of stuff, little knickknacks and games. She was a game player. I couldn't stand games. Maybe Monopoly, Risk, anything with power, money. I was interested in the game of life. No, I didn't play that. I remember my parents got me, Candyland or something like that, and I hated it. I hated it, and I remember playing the dating game. I think with my niece and stuff, and it was like, oh my god, this is horrible. I can't play this. And probably the other game that I did like was Mousetrap. I didn't like checkers. I didn't want to do chess because there was too much thinking involved, and I had other things I was thinking about. But wifey's has a lot of neat stuff, and she still buys a lot of neat stuff on eBay. Why not have at it? And we buy a lot of Disney. We are Disney people, and even though Disney disappointed us in the last 5 years, I still go, and I don't blame. By not going, I'd be hurting the employees who honestly don't have much of a say of what goes on at Disney. But, we are Disney people. Before COVID, and even during COVID, when Disney reopened, we were there the first day it reopened. And we went with masks, and we've gone, I have to say I've been to Disney over 100 times, and we love it. We're Disney people. Can't get enough Disney, and that's just who we are. Fantasyland. All right, everyone, be safe, be good. I'll have this up by about 5:30 today. It's about 1:30 now, and give to charities. People need help. And, some of it's their fault, some of it, and a lot of it's not their fault. But they still need help. Give to a registered charity. Those charities will not come to you. You must go to those charities. Don't be a victim helping a victim. Say your prayers. Everyone needs prayers. And with that, I'm going to say, I'm fading to black.